the endless searches are going to cost a lot of money. Do you see anybody pushing back on cost of the effort? And I'm not talking cost of a license to a platform, but cost of all of the compute that it's required. Or is that not something that's at the forefront of what you're seeing? And that may be the case because you guys are, you're incented and driving towards innovation, not worrying about cost.
We're obsessed with cost. Like archiving like 20 years and 20 terabytes of data, vectorizing it, making it available in real time is a very, very expensive. I think we have a 100-node cluster that's just running just for the search parts, not even the inference parts. Inference is an additional cost on top of that. I think the question I usually ask a PM is like, what is it worth you having a junior analyst read through 500 different transcripts, identify a specific trend, prepare a report, build a presentation, come to you in a week and a half and say, I think this is a good idea, and I've done this, I can just tell you, then you pitch it, and then the person usually asks you one question, and it derails your entire analysis, and you got to go back to the drawing board and do the exact same thing again. That, you know what, I'll pay $50 for that. If it's that cheap, like as compared to spending a whole week doing it, because you can get to the same question, you can just ask 10 more questions, right? And like that's kind of the ROI, and not all PMs I think are on board with that way of thinking. It's one of those things that we're seeing early adopters. Obviously all the large funds are doing this in various different ways, but then we have a lot of smaller hedge funds that are thinking, they're like, is that my edge, that I would adopt this faster than the larger ones that have a more well-established process, and maybe that's how I gain an edge or I gain an alpha. And it's actually playing out. Like the smaller firms are much more amenable to exploring these technologies because they're like, this is how I compete now. How else do I compete?
It's also interesting, though, in thinking about the AI providers in the landscape, because obviously each of your organizations are large, mature organizations that have the ability to assume some cost to run these things and build these things, whereas the folks that are coming along that are, doing it as a startup where like the cost of compute is a lot for them. It's not like, hey, we can just run a POC and show you a thing in your office. They're like, can we like run this on your AWS account and get you to pay for it? Because like, this amount of money is a lot for us to be showing people things. It actually does become quite complex, and it's an interesting set of questions because everybody does need to at the end of the day. I don't think anybody thinks about their AWS bill like in the moment of doing something, but at the end of the month, you very, very, very much think about your AWS bill, and it is significant. And so it's just one of those questions of like, can we do something about it? Should we be trying to? Or, Karsh was alluding to, if you've got, if you can spend $50 to solve an amazing problem, like you want to do that all the time and twice on Sunday. But that doesn't mean that like you can just be running down random threads that aren't leading anywhere. And at some point, somebody's going to go, wait a minute. So it's a question, but it's still out there enough. And I think this is all nascent enough that the people that are doing it have just kind of accepted that as the cost of doing business. There's a lot of people that haven't because they're not ready to accept that as the cost of doing business.
Right, and a lot of investors have given AlphaSense money, and so they're helping with that cost, of course, because they love what you guys do. So I don't know if you or Richard have another comment on cost related to what they've been talking about.
Yeah, well, so I guess I'd say two thoughts on this. One, I think that the cost, though, seems to be coming down really fast, right?
It's a race to zero.
It's like
a race to zero right
exactly.
now.
And
you just
so
don't stay alive for that long.
Yeah, exactly. So to some extent, I feel like this doesn't feel like it's going to be a problem that we're going to be talking about in the 2027 version of this panel. So in that sense, I don't worry. I actually think there's an opportunity for some software companies to take advantage of this, because I think there's a perception out there that this cost is real and that people are bearing it. And so I do think there's an opportunity for a software company. They go out to their customers and say, we've just added these new Gen AI features. We're really excited about them. We can see your customers are using them. You're getting value from them. This year we're going to have to raise price by 7-8%. And the person says, oh, that's a lot. You say, well, look, all this Gen AI stuff, it costs money to run it. You got to do it. And the true cost to them might be 1%. But there's this story about that. And so I actually think many companies can take advantage of it, as they think about future pricing.
Got it.
We will not accept price increases greater, anyway.
Matt, I don't know if you had anything to add on that.
I guess in a sales organization, I just want them to build the best product for our sales.
Very logical answer.
Yes.
Understood.
He wants a 99.5% margin at all times.
Understood.
I do know we have multiple LLMs we use. Some are specialized, some are general, and then we use them in different parts of the application based on what makes the most sense for that piece of functionality to run at the lowest possible cost. So.
And that's an interesting concept because I think you hear about this idea everybody's using or plugged into all the LLMs, but I hear less about people isolating which LLM to use in which use case. So that's a good point.